Hey everybody, it's Rob Scheer, the host of Fostering Change. Today is the first in our best of series, and we're going all the way back to the season premiere that aired actually on September the 14th of 2022. I was absolutely thrilled to have my friend, Olympic gold medalist Greg Louganis on the show. He shared stories about his childhood, he shared stories about his Olympic feats, his love of dogs, and so much more. So I truly hope you enjoy the best of.
Well, you know what? It is so hard to believe that we are actually here. 4 seasons. I remember the very first podcast I did. I was like, what in the world am I doing? And now we are on our fourth season. We have won so many awards thanks to my amazing producers at Fostering Change. But you know what? Today is November 1st. And you know what that means in my heart? Today is actually the start of National Adoption Awareness Month. That's right. National Adoption Awareness Month. I think every single month we should be celebrating people who are adopted, kids who are in foster care. Do you realize that in this month of November, we will see more children adopted out of our foster care system than any other month? And this also happens to be the month that my husband and I adopted 2 of our 5 kids. So it's a special month for us. But you know what? It's even more special because of my next guest. Was in awe, still am, when I was told that he was actually going to be on Fostering Change. When my producer came and said, "You're not going to believe who the guest is. Are you ready for this?" And I said, "Okay, who is it?" And they said, "Greg Louganis." That's right, Greg Louganis. Greg has been such an inspiration for me, not only as a good human, but as a gay man as well. And so I was fortunate enough, my husband and I and our children, to meet Greg many years ago. And I'm so happy that he is back. So, Greg, welcome to Fostering Change.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. And it's
You
so
know,
great to see you again.
it is so good to see you again. Greg,
Yeah.
I know everybody knows, and whether you realize this or not, you are a legend among yourself. Okay. You truly are. I mean, I remember, back in September watching the Emmys, which you were there, by the way, great jacket pick that you picked.
Oh, thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
didn't think I remember that one. Great
Yeah.
jacket pick. But I also know the fact that, I just want to start talking immediately about I grew up, I'm 55 years old. I grew up watching the Olympics, seeing you perform and seeing you have your entire life in the media. I really want to know, and I know our listeners and viewers want to know, what was that like?
It was really, really strange because, okay, so my first Olympics was in 1976 in Montreal. I was 16. And so I thought, I mean, I was doing this diving thing and I was like, who's going to sit at home on a weekend and watch this stuff? I didn't think it was weird. I just didn't think anybody was watching. And so I remember we were on our way back home and we were making a transfer in Chicago and, you know, people were like staring at me, I'm thinking, oh my God, is my fly down? Is like, it's like really weird. And then this one gentleman, kind of a older businessman, he just kept staring at me. And I turned to my mom and I said, do I know this person? She said, no, he probably saw you on TV on the Olympics. I said, oh, people watch that? I just had no clue. I mean, I really didn't have any clue.
Wow.
And it was just odd.
That is so unbelievably humbling, by the way, that here you were in the Olympics, on all over the world. I mean, everybody, and you were just like, people really watch that. It's like, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
As a family, we sit in front of the TV set and we still to this day love watching the Olympics. But one thing that I did not know for many years about you is that you actually were adopted.
Yep. Yeah. I was adopted when I was 9 months old. I was in foster care. I went right into, once I was born, I was in foster care. And it was really fascinating because I went to a gay pride parade in San Diego with my mom. And it was just, it was interesting because when I was there, this young man came up to me and said, you know, I called you Timmy and you were my foster brother. And so I was like, yeah. And he said, my mom's really shy and I just wanted to reach out and introduce you. So I met the woman who fostered me, and it was so sweet. I mean, it was so wonderful. And he was funny. He said, I knew you as Timmy. And it was like, oh, it was really cool because I don't remember,
Right.
because I was adopted when I was 9 months old, so I don't remember that. But to be introduced to the woman who fostered me, it was just really amazing. It was really, really sweet.
All five of my children all were adopted out of foster care. And my youngest
Mhm.
actually came to us at the age of 6 months. So, for him, he's always known of having two dads and being raised
Right.
with two dads. But, one of the things that really took me back, which, I think people don't realize this, is that, even from the shade of people's skin, there's such a stigma of being bullied. And
Yeah.
so, and I've read, in your book that, you also had this exact same issue. And I think about my son who's light skinned, where, he also have had people who have bullied. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, where I grew up in El Cajon, it was, predominantly Caucasian. And also in 1960, everybody wanted blonde hair, blue-eyed babies. And so I was really, really fortunate because my father is Greek and my mother's Scotch Irish, and my mother wanted kids with a darker complexion, dark hair. And thank God, because that's how I was chosen.
Right. Right.
And so it was just really, I mean, the opportunities that it gave me were just incredible.
Have you had any desire, or have you contacted your birth parents whatsoever?
Yes, I have. Oh my God, that's a whole nother story,
Oh my God.
It's okay. So after the 1984 Olympic Games,
Right.
I was in Hawaii. I was doing an appearance for Speedo, and my host says, Greg, your father's here. I said, oh, my father's not in Hawaii. That's crazy. He would have told me if he was coming to Hawaii. I said, no, 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 your biological father. I'm like, oh, and he wanted to meet me. And so I met Fuvali, my biological father, and his family, his wife, Jerry, and then my half siblings, Malcolm and Sherilyn and Geraldine. And, I wasn't sure because it was right after the Olympic Games. And I thought,
Right.
a little skeptical, not too sure. But through the years, he was always there. He would make sure that when I was leaving, that he'd bring me pineapples, chocolate covered macadamia nuts, coffee, all the things from the island to bring home. And he never asked for anything. And so years went by and he would always be there. And I thought, you know what, this guy, I'll bet you he is my dad. And so when we had a screening of Back on Board in Hawaii, he showed up and he was there with my sister. And I heard that they were having a Lutu. His last name is Lutu. And they were having a Lutu family reunion the following year. And so I reached out to my half brother. I said, Malcolm, do you think it'd be okay if I came to the reunion? And he said, oh my God, Greg, that would be so awesome because now we could talk openly about you and our connection. And so I went to I wanted to make sure. So I did the ancestry.com DNA.
Okay.
And then I reached out to leaves on my family tree and said, okay, this is my story. And I just want to verify that Fuvale Lutu is in fact my biological father. And they wrote back, said, oh yeah, we're cousins. This is how we're related and all that. And yes, he is my father. And it was so cool. I mean, I kind of knew in my heart,
Right.
just
Right.
through the years. And it's just been amazing to kind of get to know them and, and share with my brother. I've, spent Christmases in Hawaii and stayed with my brother and sister-in-law. And it's just been amazing. The one thing that I wasn't expecting was on ancestry.com, somebody reached out to me and said, look, I know who you are, and you came up as a leaf on our family tree, and we don't know how. The only thing that we can think of is that you might be my aunt's son. And so then she had a conversation with her aunt, and she said, okay, if you were conceived in Midway, born in San Diego, and your father's name is Fuvale Lutu, she's my mom. So I found my mom too.
Wow.
And she wanted to meet me. And so I went, and Thanksgiving, I went up to her sister's, and we had Thanksgiving dinner. So, and
wait a minute. So the very first time that you're meeting your biological mother is at a family Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah. I mean, it was a small gathering. It was just
but still, it's like,
it was just my cousin, my aunt, and my mom, and I was there with my husband. And so, yeah, it was really interesting. So on my father's side, my biological father's side, I have a brother and two sisters. Right. On my biological mother's side, I have a brother and a sister. And the fascinating thing is that John, Cindy's son, they grew up in El Cajon. So our paths had to have crossed.
Had to.
Yeah.
That is so amazing.
And then Malcolm, my brother on my dad's side, he grew up in Hawaii, totally immersed in the whole Polynesian culture. And it's interesting to me because I was raised in the Greek church. I was raised Greek. So I know the Greek traditions, the Greek cooking, the cuisine, and big thing was Easter and all that. And I would dance. I would be a part of the Greek festivals and do the Greek dancing and all that. So now learning about this whole nother culture that I am connected to, has really been fascinating. And then, my brother on my mother's side, I mean, our paths had to have crossed. I mean, El Cajon is really small.
Right. So I have to ask before we take a break, but how were your adopted parents feeling as you are starting these connections?
Well, it was interesting because when Fuvale introduced himself after the '84 Olympic Games, I had a conversation with my mom and I said, how do you feel about that? She said she didn't have any concerns about me meeting my father. Her concern was if my mother showed up, because that I may have felt more like a threat to her, or, she shared with me, she was concerned that my biological mother might be very needy. Got it. And actually, she was pretty right on.
Your mom was right on that one.
Yeah. Because Cindy's like, wants me to call every day, and it's like, no. That's not. I didn't even call my own family every day. So yeah, just a very, very different life.
Wow. Well, listen, everybody, it has been such an amazing first part of this. Greg has 2 books out, both of them, which are sitting here on my favorite bookshelves. Greg, I have to tell you, I am just in awe about you. There's so much more we're going to talk about in the second half, but listen up, everyone. Season 4 has kicked off, and it's kicked off like I always loved, talking with good friends, really learning, because each and every one of us has a story. And when we tell that story, we never, ever know how it will impact someone. We'll be right back. This episode of Fostering Change is sponsored by Comfort Cases, a national nonprofit that inspires our communities to bring hope and dignity to our youth that are in foster care. For just $10 a month, you can support the Comfort Case mission and help us eliminate trash bags for kids who are entering foster care. For every $10 that you give, Comfort cases will give a Comfort XL to a child entering the system. Be part of the change. Visit comfortcases.org. Well, you know what? I am so excited about season 4. You know, it's so crazy because each time that the season is getting ready to end, I tell my producer, you know, I think this is it. And sure enough, we do another season. And sure enough, we have some of the most amazing guests. You know, I know I'm a little starstruck, and all of you know me, and you've watched me over the years on social media in the last 4 seasons, that, you know, it's very hard for Rob to get starstruck, but I am so starstruck with my guest, Greg Louganis. You know, Greg, I have grown up with you. I have watched your diving every single year. I have stalked you on social media. I have been just so in awe about how you have lived your life so openly in front of a camera. And, you know, and I know there's some things that people have been wanting me to ask you. And I just want to go ahead and ask, you know, in today's climate, you know, for me as a gay man, I'm married, we have 5 children, and so many things have happened within our country this year. And, you know, as I have had friends who have gone from being HIV positive to where it's barely detected, you know, barely detected, for you to have come out and being so positive about, you know, your diagnosis, how do you feel about that now?
Well, you know, it was interesting because that whole, no matter what it is, if it's HIV, your sexual identity, whatever that is, you know, it's a process. That coming out process, it really is a journey. And it was interesting because I was doing the play Jeffrey in New York, and I played Darius. It's all about gay dating in the 90s with HIV and all that. And it's a comedy by Paul Rudnick. And so the character that I played was Darius. And each night after night in performing, I was able to face my fantasies as well as my greatest fears, because Darius is a chorus boy with an 8th grade education, lives in a penthouse, doesn't pay rent. He's out and proud at gay pride marches, but he also dies of complications with HIV/AIDS. And so I was able to face that. Nobody knew about my HIV status at that time. And so I was living that. And I knew that my next step for my own personal development and growth was to come out about my HIV status, because I felt like I was living on an island with barely a phone for communication to the outside world, because that's what secrets do to you. They isolate you. And so I knew that in my heart, that I wasn't the only one. And so I, you know, not only for myself, but I wanted to do it for others as well. And so, you know, that's kind of how Breaking the Surface happened. And I was introduced to Eric Marcus, my co-author, by a very dear friend, Robbie Brown. And we just connected, and it was, you know, it was great. Eric was like, okay, what was, of course, everybody asked because of my hitting my head on the springboard at the '88 Olympic Games. I said, well, what was going on through your head when you hit your head on the board? And so I turned to Eric, said, okay, turn the tape recorder off. And I said, I was afraid. I was afraid because I knew my HIV status. And then he started crying, I started crying. And then he said, well, were you on any type of treatment? And I said, oh yeah, they wanted to treat me very aggressively, so they put me on AZT right away.
Wow.
And he just started sobbing. And I didn't understand it because I didn't have anybody to talk to about my medications, about, you know, reactions or whatever. And he was just sobbing. And when he calmed down, I said, why did you react that way? And he said, Greg, you don't know. You don't know what you did. I said, you were on AZT and you won 2 Olympic gold medals.
Two.
And I was like, oh, so AZT is not a performance enhancing drug, right? So, but far from it, it's a chemotherapy,
Yeah.
so to be able to do that. And then when I look back on that whole journey with the training, and I was like training so hard because the Chinese had caught up to me and I knew I was holding on by the skin of my teeth. And so I knew I had to be in the very best shape that I could possibly be in. But I was also on this medication, and AZT at that time was prescribed 2 pills every 4 hours around the clock.
Right.
And so I'm getting up in the middle of the night, the middle of the morning. It was just a pain in the butt to take. But I didn't realize how depleting, that the AZT was.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I tell you,
it was probably
I
a good
grew up
thing.
in that age
Yeah.
and lost many, many friends, new friends who
Yeah.
were on AZT. And by the way, for those of you who watch Pose, I know that we do. That has opened up so many lights of what people went through. And I have to tell you, I have the same reaction as your friend. I did, not, and for those who have not, breaking the surface, this book is such an amazing book, because the thing that really surprised me, is that you were on AZT, knowing what that drug does to your body, and you go and you win not 1, but 2 Olympic medals. I mean, that is just, that shows me the resilience that you have within you, Greg. I'm telling you, I'm just, and now, the new thing is you're doing some RV life right now. What you got to tell me about this, because I can't even get my kids to go in an RV. I want to
Oh
know
my
what
God.
the heck you're doing.
Actually, having an RV, it's a luxury. Okay, so I compete in dog agility. I years ago when I had another partner, Daniel, and we had this huge RV, and we'd load all the dogs and we'd travel all over the country hitting dog agility trials all over. And so right now I'm looking to get another RV. I think I've landed on what I want. It's the floor plan and all that just really works. And so it's going to the agility trials. You can travel with your dogs. Dog agility is an obstacle course.
Right.
And so it's jump, tunnels, weave poles, dog walk, teeter, A-frame are the obstacles. And it's usually 16 to 24 obstacle course generally. And each course is different. And you kind of guide your dog through the course off leash. It's a timed event. So
Right.
it's all about speed. And G, my Hungarian Pumi, he's really, really talented. So he just turned 2, and I was just at the super regionals up in Northern California, and he did really well. He gave me some good stuff, but he's on that journey. He's on that path.
Right. Well, let me tell you something. He's adorable, everybody. I got to meet G during the commercial break. Those little ears popped up. I'm just telling you, that is, I love the fact that you are, continuing your journey with things that you love to do. You are such an animal lover in general. You do dogs throughout your entire career. You just have such a connection. But knowing, I've watched on TV the trainers who've trained dogs who go these obstacle course, and that is hard, because I've got 3 dogs and I'm lucky if they even come when I say come here. So that is really, really hard. Greg, I have to tell you, I cannot thank you enough for being our guest on our 4th season. I can't thank you enough. You have done more for not only the fact, I always tell people all the time, I'm a human before I am a gay man. So, but the fact is for what you have done for our LGBTQ brothers and sisters, for what you have done to normalize adoption, foster care, that not every story is heart-wrenching and heartbreaking, that reunification, the story you just told about your dad, the reunification can be healthy, and that people should be open. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it can be. I'm still processing right? We're always processing, but, processing, what does family mean? And, both my parents who raised me, they've passed. Dad passed in 91, mom passed in 04. And it was interesting because going through the divorce, I'm divorced now, and it was a beautiful divorce. We're still good friends. We're wonderful, wonderfully supportive of each other, want the best for each other. It was just, it's really, really good. But it was interesting because, to do like who is your beneficiary, and I was like, I was like in tears. I was like, I don't have anybody. And then I thought, I have a brother.
That's
I
right.
have Malcolm. And and then that relationship is growing and developing, and I'm learning so much. They made me a high chief Tamale Tamua Fua'u is my chief name, but they adopted me. Tamali Ifa Tamua is my chief name. And so, it's just learning about a whole new culture, a whole new connection, DNA connection to family. So it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And
It's your life book. It is your
yeah,
life book. And I
yeah.
think each and every one of us who've gone through adoption, have dealt into foster care, I love for you, it's a full circle moment to meet the boy who called you Timmy,
Yeah.
to meeting your biological father and having this amazing relationship with your biological brother. It is full circle for you. And
Yeah.
I am so, so unbelievably honored that I get to actually say, I know Greg Louganis and I consider him one of the best humans. So listen, thank you so much for being on Fostering Change. Everybody, the book is Breaking the Surface. It's still available. Love this book. Love that dive right there. And then also For the Life of Your Dog, okay? For the Life of Your Dog. And for those who know anything about the Scheers, we love our dogs. And we always remind people, if you come to our house and the dog is sitting on the couch, you better find another chair. So with that, Greg, thank you so much. It has been an amazing kickoff of season 4. And I can't wait till you and I get together and have a nice cup of coffee or maybe even a cocktail. So, take care, everybody. Until next
I'm
week.
sober. So
Okay.
it'll be tea or sparkling water.
Tea. I'm more than happy to have some sparkling water and some tea with you, my friend. So until next time, everybody, this is Fostering Change. Continue to be good humans.
I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for listening or watching the latest episode of Fostering Change. All of us on our team hope that you've learned something new today and have been inspired to be a good human. Now, just a reminder that you can always find Fostering Change on your favorite channels on Google, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and others, including, of course, comfortcases.org. I want to give a big thank you to all of you for joining us each and every week. And a reminder that if you have a suggestion for a guest, or maybe you might have a question about today's podcast, or are interested in becoming a sponsor of Fostering Change, please don't hesitate to email me personally at fosteringchange@comfortcases.org. Now, that's it for now. Thanks again, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.